Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot Nibblink, and I am the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G draft strategy, and contributor to Yahoo Fantasy. In this episode, I will run through some week one ads and streamers for you, and I have put together some of the most scorching hot takes possible for your immediate resentment and ridicule. Let's get it. All right. Well, unfortunately, I do not have your friend and my best friend Blake Creamer here with me tonight. Apparently, he has this thing called a life, and apparently, as well, I am legally not allowed to reprimand him for that. So, yeah, I'm flying solo on this one, but not to worry. Blake did give me his hot takes for this season, so you will be getting those, and we'll just kind of ridicule them together, and it'll be a good time for everybody involved, except for Blake. Before I get into the hot takes, though, I do want to run over some week one ads and streamers. At the time you're listening to this, it's probably the day of the start of the NHL season, and you're probably doing a bunch of last second tweaks to your lineup. And so I thought this would be valuable information just for those of you who are absolute degenerates like myself and can't stop fiddling with the lineup until puck drop anyway. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. In terms of the daily games played for this week, on Tuesday we have 3 games played. On Wednesday, we have 6 games played. On Thursday, we have 7. On Friday, just 2. And then on Saturday, we have the one super busy night, which is 14 games being played, 28 out of 32 teams playing that night. And then Sunday, again, just 2 games played. That's 34 games played total. That's a very, very light week in terms of, a normal NHL week on the season. Now, when there's a low number of total games played in a week, it makes the streamers, the players that you pick up for that week and that week only, all the more important. You really want to focus on maximizing the number of games played that you're going to get out of your lineup for a week like this, because it'll just represent a higher percentage of the total number of games played that week, just because there's less games being played overall across the league. So definitely want to be streaming pretty hard in weeks like this. Get yourself out to that early start, that early W, get that 1-0 on the board. That's what we want to do here. So pretty much here, we're just going to focus on the teams that have good schedules here. There are 8 teams that play 3 games played with 2 off nights. Just for a quick definition, off nights, the way I define it, would be any night in which half of the league or less is playing. So 8 games being played or less. That would be an off night for me, which is pretty much every night this week except for the Saturday. So the 8 teams that I mentioned are Carolina, Chicago, Nashville, Ottawa, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Tampa Bay, and Vegas. Now, 5 of those teams get both off nights in before the Saturday, leaving kind of the optionality to do another Sunday stream if you so desire with that lineup spot. So the 5 teams that get the 2 off nights in before Saturday are Chicago, Nashville, Pittsburgh, Seattle, and Vegas. And then there's also New Jersey. Now, New Jersey only plays 2 games, but they're both on off nights. They're on the Thursday, Friday, back to back. And you're not getting your streamer or your last player that you're thinking about changing around for this week. You're not going to get that player into your lineup on that super heavy Saturday night anyway. So New Jersey's schedule is legitimately just as good as any of the other teams that I just mentioned. Really, the biggest move that you should be making this week is playing a Chicago player at the start. They play Tuesday, Wednesday back to back, and then switching into a New Jersey player Thursday to Friday. That's the best move. You're going to get a game played on every single night leading up to the Saturday, and then you can switch out on the Sunday again if you so desire with that streaming spot. And if you get to Sunday and your team's killing it and you're so far ahead you don't need to make that move, then you can use that move on Sunday to set yourself up for the following week instead of waiting for your ads to reset for that week. So let's talk about a few of these Chicago players. So Taylor Hall would obviously be the pick if he's available, but he is 53% rostered in Yahoo, so it's not likely he's going to be available. And as soon as you get past Hall, starts to get dicey very quickly. You've got Ryan Donato, who's been on the top line with Connor Bedard. It looks like maybe power play one. They've done a few different things here between him and Tyler Johnson. The one fixture that has been on power play one the last few go rounds has been Corey Perry, but Corey Perry's not getting great even strength deployment. He'll probably only play like 12 minutes a night, but some of that on the power play. So kind of take from that what you will. A lot of people are excited about Lucas Reichel, but he is starting line two, power play two, and Andreas Athanasiou is another name that I'd throw out there for some deeper leagues, line two, power play two as well. All told, I would obviously go Hall first if he's available. Then I think you're kind of into a tier where it's Donato, Perry, Tyler Johnson. If you can wait and try to figure out what the lines are, if there's any news from the beat reporters, what the power play lines are going to be. I don't know if we'll get that information, but if you do get that information before puck drop and you can snag the guy who's going to be on top power play between Donato and Tyler Johnson, that would be the clear pickup there for me. And then between Corey Perry, Lucas Reichel, Andreas Athanasiou, I think you can kind of toss those all in a hat and pick whoever's available in your league. For New Jersey players, it's really tough because pretty much anybody who is fantasy relevant in New Jersey is already rostered in the vast majority of leagues, and then it goes all the way down to 10% with Eric Haula. And Haula has been dealing with an injury. We'll see if he's good to go by Thursday. If Haula is not ready to go, you can look at Alexander Holtz. It seems like he's come out of the top six where he was practicing and playing for a bit of the preseason. If he gets back to the top six in practice before then I'd definitely be interested in Holtz. And then there's Andre Palat, who's another option. So not really great options from New Jersey, but I still think it's worth it. Not great options from either team, really. I do think it's worth it just because of the sheer number of games played. Like if you choose from one of these other teams, you're going to get 2 games played before the Saturday. But if you go with the Chicago into the New Jersey, you're going to get 4 games played and just literally double your odds of getting some sort of relevant fantasy deployment or fantasy production there, rather. So all the others, you're really mostly just looking at week-long streams. Obviously, if you can get one from one of those teams that is playing both games before the Saturday, then you kind of give yourself the option to switch to one of the teams playing on the Sunday. If you need that extra boost on Sunday to try to win your matchup. But basically, I'm just going to run through a list of names that I think are relevant from these teams. Seth Jarvis is the best player by far, in my opinion, that you can pick up. Now, Carolina isn't playing both off-night games before the Saturday, so you can take that into account. If it's just a week-long stream, though, Seth Jarvis is the guy for me 100%. Other guys that I like, Chandler Stevenson, Brian Rust, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Andrei Burakovsky, and Ivan Barbashev. All those guys I do have some interest in. Seattle and Vegas, their guys, and Pittsburgh. So all of these guys that I just mentioned are all playing their 2 off-night games before the Saturday. So if Jarvis is not what you want, if you want to get that extra game, then one of those guys would be a great pick in my opinion. Stevenson, his role is pretty set, so I like that. Bjorkstrand, I think, is a solid option as well. Barbashev is going to be on the top line, but not the top power play. And then Rust and Burakovsky kind of round out that group for me. Stevenson would probably be my top pick in most points setups at the very least. Then getting beyond that, you get into a few more names like Nick Paul, who's been on the top power play for Tampa. Then you get into Jaden Schwartz. You get Ryan O'Reilly, Tommy Novak over in Nashville. And then you get to the defensemen. So Justin Schultz, I saw, was practicing I believe it was practicing. I don't think it was a game report with the Jared McCann power play unit. So that's a little bit interesting on Justin Schultz if you're looking for a D stream. Jacob Sanderson is power play 2 in Ottawa, so that's a look as well. And then if you're just looking for some bangers category coverage, then Braden McNabb from Vegas is a really good option to do all of that. So that's pretty much all of it here for you. I mean, I can mention to you that Arizona, Dallas, Washington, and the New York Islanders all only play one game this week, so it's probably not worth hanging on to those players this week. If they're kind of on the edge of your lineup, you'd be much better off to drop those kind of fringe players and get into some of these streams that I'm talking about here, in my opinion. So do consider that as well if you're rostering one of those guys. Maybe you took them at the end of your draft, not realizing that they had such a weak first week schedule. Then maybe you want to think about dropping some of those fringe players from those teams and evaluating whether one of these other players that I've mentioned can really provide you a boost this week. All right, I want to talk through these hot takes. We had to get this out there to the people. It had been promised, and we want to deliver every single time we promise something. So we have to follow up Hutch and Binksy's hot takes with some of our own. I think Blake and I went a little hotter than Hutch and Binksy. I think we're feeling pretty confident that we did that, which was our aim here. We didn't want to be the lesser of the hot takes crew here. So I'll run through Blake's first. His first one here. Patrick Laine bounces back big time, goes for 90 points, including 30 power play points and 45 goals. This is a big projection for sure. I've talked about it before, but Laine seems to have morphed into this kind of playmaking player more than a goal scorer somehow. Don't know exactly how that has happened or how likely it is that he somehow goes back to his earlier days where he was shooting the lights out and being very efficient at it as well. So I do think that this is possible. Like I have Laine projected for somewhere, I believe, actually around 80 points. So 10 points more, with some favorable percentages, some luck going his way. I do think that that's not out of the realm of possibility if everybody in Columbus can actually stay healthy this year, if they can kind of get rolling with the rebuild that it seems that they've been on for quite some time, then yeah, I do think that there's a chance of this one. So I'm here for that take. It's pretty hard to trust Laine. Obviously, he's not been the epitome of consistency over the last number of years. Dealt with some injury issues in there, which certainly have not helped. But yeah, I'm actually not that. I can get behind this one. It's a hot take, but it's one I can get behind as a hot take. All right, the next one is Andrei Kuzmenko, big koozie, hits 70 points, 35 goals, and 35 assists, and shoots 20% on the season, shutting down all the regression talk. Power play 1, line 1, attached to PD, increased role, ice time, shots on goal per 60, all going to increase in Blake's mind. This one is pretty hot for me. I've talked obviously about the regression coming here, as have many others after that ridiculous shooting percentage he posted last year. Yeah, it would be pretty shocking to have back-to-back 20% shooting seasons. Leon Draisaitl, who is pretty much the most efficient goal scorer that we've seen in my lifetime anyway. He's not done that before. He's come close a few times with some high 19% shooting percentage seasons, but he's never had back-to-back 20% shooting seasons, which just goes to show how incredibly hard it is to do that. So as much as I would love to co-sign this one here, I think this one's a little too spicy for me, and I think maybe Blake's homerism is getting the best of him here with the Vancouverite Andrei Kuzmenko. The last one, this is going to be Daddy Boone Jenner. Blake says that he's going to detonate on the league with 25 goals, 60 points, 250 shots on goal, 100 hits, 90 blocks. Book it. Wow. All right. Well, in terms of the point totals, like it's definitely possible. He's already got Line A going for 90, so why not Boone Jenner for 60, right? If he maintains stranglehold on top power play all season long and his minutes aren't really reduced with the rise of, Fantilli and Kent Johnson, if he kind of hangs on to the role that he had last year all season long, then I can see it. It's probably hotter just to think that things will go kind of the same way they were last season than it is to really think that if given the deployment, Boone Jenner can hit these numbers, because I do think he can hit these numbers if given the deployment. It's really just about whether he actually gets there. So I've picked up Boone Jenner in a bunch of leagues. I think that at least at the start of the season, he's going to be pretty terrific and provide all that category coverage for you. He's definitely one of the best shot blocking forwards in the league. So if your league has blocks, that's really helpful. Definitely going to hit. He's going to shoot. So I can definitely get behind this take as well. I wish that there was a little bit more here to ridicule in Blake's hot takes. Yeah, I wish he had kind of stepped it up in that regard so that I could make fun of him a little more. But the show must go on. All right, my predictions are here. The first one that I want to talk about is Alexander Barkov. I'm going to say that Alexander Barkov goes for 45 goals and 105 points, while armchair injury experts everywhere throw up their hands in absolute disbelief. So I posed a question to Twitter the other day because I was curious. I was thinking about this and I was curious. So I just asked Twitter to tell me who came to mind when I say injury prone. What players come to mind when I say injury prone? And all the players that came up more than once, so more than one person mentioned them, I wrote down here. So we've got Nikolai Ehlers, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, Austin Matthews, Frederick Anderson, Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty, and also Barkov. So right off the bat, I'm going to cross out a few here that I don't think are kind of worth talking about. So we have Pacioretty, who obviously had, back-to-back Achilles ruptures. Like this guy is in a category of his own when it comes to injury prone. Like that's just a recurring issue, and it's kind of completely separate from honestly anything we've really seen from other players. So I don't know how much repeatability we can see from this. Mark Stone, again, a chronic issue, and I've talked about this before. I generally fade the injury narrative, and I'm willing to buy the injury dip on players. Mark Stone is one exception to that because it does seem like a chronic issue that's actually just going to limit him for the rest of his career at this point. So I think Mark Stone is a bit in his own category in that regard. And Frederick Anderson, I'd also place in that kind of category because he has consistently dealt with groin issues like every single season. He misses games with groin issues. So it really seems like it's the same thing year over year. It's not getting better. He just kind of manages it, and he doesn't play maybe as much as he used to. But it seems like he's just going to consistently deal with that issue. And it's a repeat issue, something that comes up every single year. That one I do buy that there is some sort of condition there where he just can't physically stay healthy all season long. Now, that leaves four others, so that's Ehlers, Letang, Malkin, and Matthews. And I just want to run through these. So Ehlers missed 37 games last year, 20 games the year before, and 9 games the year before that. So these are the reasons he missed the games last year. He had an MCL injury to his knee. He had sports hernia, and he took a dirty hit, an interference hit from Ryan Hartman that he was just completely not expecting and got utterly pasted, and that was it. He missed more time there. So I would love for someone to tell me how these three things are related and how we can conclusively say from that Nikolai Ehlers is somehow injury prone, that we should expect moving forward that Nikolai Ehlers is going to miss time because we've seen his sports hernia happen. We've also seen him have a knee issue that one time, and we've also seen that he's prone to getting hit on dirty plays by by someone who he hasn't even seen in his line of sight. So these are three very different things, and that's the case with a lot of these things. And it's the reason that I really fade the injury narrative in a lot of cases. Let's talk about Letang. Letang was mentioned by three different people. He's missed 18 games last year. He missed 4 games the year before that, and only 1 game the year before that. Last year, he had a stroke. That was the reason he missed a bunch of games. He had an illness that kept him out for a bunch of games, and he had a lower body injury that kept him out for a few games. So if you like, I don't know how repeatable we think the stroke thing is. I don't know if his immune system is bad and that's why we think that he's going to get sick a bunch every single year and he's going to miss time. But that's last year where he missed the 18 games. The years before that, it was 4 games he missed and 1 game. That is not injury prone in my book. So that's another case where I think the narrative in people's heads is not lining up with the actual facts of the player. Let's talk about Malkin. Came up 3 times. Last year played 82 games, still being mentioned as injury prone. I can't get behind that one. In the season before that, he missed 41 games, so half the season. Probably why people are still thinking of him as injury prone. In that season, he was suspended for 4 games. He missed games due to illness, and he had knee surgery. The year before that, it was a lower body injury. He had an eye issue that kept him out for a bunch of games, and he had an elbow surgery. I don't know how you can possibly relate any of these things unless the lower body injury from the season before turned into the knee surgery the following year, like maybe. But other than that, like what of these things are related that you think this player is injury prone, quote unquote? And then let's talk about Matthews, mentioned by 2 people. Matthews has missed 8 games, 9 games, and 4 games in the last 3 seasons. He has not missed double-digit games in any of the last 3 seasons. And quite honestly, I might say that Matthews is the one I'd be most concerned about of the 3 that we talked about before him because he has wrist injuries that have come up in multiple seasons. And I don't know if that's something that will come back year over year. I really don't know. I'm not projecting it as such and I'm not drafting as such. But if I was going to pick a player from these 4 that I'd be the most concerned about, it would be Matthews. And he is the one that has missed the less than 10 games in each of the last 3 seasons. So that was really long-winded, but I really wanted to get it off my chest because it really bothers me when I see people talk about injury-prone players like they absolutely know that this player is going to miss time, and they really don't. They have no insight into the medicals on these players, and they're basing it on a lot of their gut feels about how that player made them feel when they missed time during their fantasy hockey playoffs. You've got to put this stuff aside. It's not about you. It's about the player and it's about the fact that we really cannot predict injuries. Just stop. Get some help. So, all that to say, I think Barkov, who has missed 14 games, 15 games, and 6 games in the last 3 seasons, I think that he's probably going to be healthy this year. I don't see a reason to project why not. Last year, he had pneumonia. He missed a bunch of games for that. He had a lower body issue that kept him out for a few games, and then he had a hand issue that kept him out. These are not related things. These are the things that he missed games for last year, and they are completely unrelated. I don't know how you can say that Alexander Barkov is injury prone unless you're just box score scouting the games played totals at the end of the season and seeing that he had some completely unrelated issues in different seasons. So, if he's going to play 82 games, which I have no reason to believe otherwise, in my opinion, then I do think that this is a player I can reasonably project for close to 100 points. So I spiced it up just a little bit, 45 goals and 105 points. You see it in the underlying numbers. You see it in Paul Maurice playing the absolute heck out of his stars. I think that Barkov is going to play probably 22 minutes a night this year. He's going to get every opportunity. He's going to have to carry some things with some of the injuries on the back end. He's probably going to have the power play run through him and Matthew Tkachuk. I really think that this is the year that Barkov goes off and everybody's like, oh, I should have been drafting that guy. Yes, you should have been drafting that guy. All right, that was probably the longest one that I'm going to do here, but I really wanted to talk about the injury stuff because I've seen more and more of it and it's just bugging the heck out of me. So I had to get that out there. The next one is Connor Bedard fails to crack 70 points and is a major fantasy disappointment. I think everyone at this point has heard lots of people talking about Connor Bedard's 90-point upside. I do think he has 90-point upside. I've said that before as well. I do think that he is all that he is a generational talent, and that he will become, the face of the league at some point in the very near future. I do not think that that is going to be this year. So, just for reference, I went back and I looked at Connor McDavid's rookie year. He had a big injury that year and missed a bunch of time, but he had 48 points in 45 games. That's an 87-point pace. But he actually had some players on that team. So he had Taylor Hall there, who had 65 points in 82 games. He had Draisaitl there, who scored at a 58-point pace. He had Eberle there, who scored at a 56-point pace. He had Ryan Nugent-Hopkins there, who scored at a 51-point pace. And Benoit Pouliot actually had a 54-point pace that year, believe it or not. So you're talking about 5 other players on the Oilers that year who scored at a 50-point pace or better. Now, I'm going to read you back the Chicago Blackhawks roster right now, and you tell me which of these players are going to score 50-plus points this year. Taylor Hall? Sure. Yeah, pretty good chance Taylor Hall scores 50 points this year. Then we go Lucas Reichel, Tyler Johnson, Andreas Athanasiou, Corey Perry, Taylor Radish, Seth Jones, Ryan Donato. Who is going to score at this level and is going to help Bedard get to these crazy numbers that people are throwing around? I just cannot get behind that. I do not think it's going to happen. And so my hot take here is that Connor Bedard fails to crack 70 points, and he's a major disappointment where he's being drafted this year. And lastly, I do want to end on a high note. This is probably my most rostered player across all of my drafts so far this year, but Matt Boldy is going to be this year's Tage Thompson / Jason Robertson. He's going to hit 100 points this year. Now, a couple of reasons why I think that this could happen. So both, if you look at kind of the profile of player here, right? Tage Thompson and Jason Robertson both had breakouts the year before last year, and they were kind of at the same level that Boldy showed last season. Like, they both kind of broke out into that 70-point range, up into that kind of point pace, and then they took the step this past season and really took off into superstar status, right? So I think that Boldy can follow that kind of trajectory. It's only last year was only his second year. A lot of people, once they get past a couple of years in the league, people think all of these guys are, grizzled veterans and they can't improve anymore. They're not going to take another step at this point. That's definitely not true. Matt Boldy played 47 games his rookie season, 81 games last year, and this year, who knows? Maybe he gets more minutes this year. Maybe Kaprizov being healthy for a full season would go a long way towards Boldy getting that power play exposure. The other piece of the puzzle here that I do think would be necessary for Boldy to hit this hot take would be that the team situation there would have to improve. There's a few ways that I think that it can improve for Boldy. The first one is that Kaprizov exposure on the power play. Maybe he ends up playing on that top line, a Zuccarello injury or something like that. Maybe supplants Zuccarello on the top line, gets more Kaprizov exposure. Kaprizov is, in my mind, a locked and loaded 100-point player this season outside of injury. But even without that, I think that Matt Boldy found some chemistry with Marcus Johansson. He's probably going to play with Johansson for a fair bit of the year, along with Joel Eriksson Ek. And that line found some chemistry. That's where Boldy had his big push at the end of last year. And I think that even if he can't get that Kaprizov exposure at even strength, that he can sustain enough at even strength that he could potentially reach this, as long as that chemistry holds over from last year. And then, maybe this is finally the year that we get a Marco Rossi breakout. I think it's possible, if not probable. Maybe that's another scenario that comes up, and that really boosts Boldy here to a new level. All right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that and got some value out of our hot takes here. If you haven't already, you definitely need to hop in the Apples and Geno's Discord server. We've got 800 plus fantasy managers in there, all talking about fantasy hockey every second of every day. It's an absolute joy to be in there, just talking about all the latest situations, deployments, who to pick up, who to drop, who to trade for, all the time. Definitely get in there. If you're looking for more specific advice for your situation, then I do offer that via Patreon, just a $5 monthly subscription. I will answer all your questions all the time. I'm usually able to answer within an hour or two every single day. So definitely, if you're just looking for someone to give you answers kind of on the spot to all your questions as they come up, then I can definitely do that for you. While you're here, if you could like and subscribe the video if you're watching on YouTube, if you are listening to this as a podcast, then if you could throw a quick rating on it, that really does help us out. But that's all I've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. Many thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. And that's it, folks. Much love.